Good afternoon and welcome to this Digital Construction Events webinar, how Mace and 3D Repo are improving construction performance management in association with 3D Repo. This afternoon, we will learn how Stageport is using digital surveying and cloud-based BIM to create virtual venues that generate wide-ranging benefits for venue operators, visiting producers, and audiences. We'll see a live demo and use case on a new remote 3D rendering and advanced model caching solution from 3D Repo construction clients and contractors to collaborate using large 3D models in real time. We'll hear how Mace plans to improve productivity, quality and performance of UK construction via a new immersive plug-and-play construction management and reporting platform. And we'll also have a look at Luminova's Hyperview digital twin platform built for visualizing large-scale, realistic 3D portfolio projects that enable immersive reviews, streamline communication, and drive better decisions. And there will be a Q&A session at the end. I'm your chair, Justin Stanton, for Digital Construction Events. Our speakers this afternoon are Stephen Rowe, Managing Director at Stageport, Bogdan Davydov, BIM Specialist at 3D Repo, Matthew Gough, Director of Innovation and Winning Work at Mace, and Lawrence Matthews, Managing Director at Luminova. Before we crack on, there's a bit of housekeeping as usual. Please use the Q&A function rather than the chat function, the Q&A function, to ask questions during presentations. You can pose a question as yourself or anonymously. Our panelists will try to answer questions in the Q&A function as we go along. Any unanswered questions and the juiciest questions will be addressed in the Q&A session after the presentations have concluded. This webinar is being recorded and will be available on demand afterwards. So that's enough of that. Let's kick off. So I'll stop sharing my screen and Matthew, can you please share yours? In fact, Stephen rather. Stephen, sorry.
I was going to say, you surprised
exactly. Yeah, sorry. Yeah. It'll be over to Stephen.
Thanks, Justin, and thanks everyone for the opportunity to present today. My name's Stephen Rowe. I founded Stageport in 2018 with one main purpose: to digitise every cultural venue in the UK. Can I just confirm you're getting the presentation there, guys?
We're getting your notes as well, so you're not in.
There we go. We're starting again. Okay, sorry about that.
You've also got, Stephen, sorry, you've also got your text on the right-hand side, so we're still not in full presenter mode.
Oh, right, I am presenting here, so I'm not quite sure why that's happening. Let me just see.
I'm sure we can all manage. So you're back to half. You're split 2/3, 1/3.
Yeah, I'm not sure why that's happening. Listen, I'll just kick on.
Yeah, you crack on.
And I'm sure you're not going to be trying to read my notes. There's not much there anyway. So yeah, I founded Stageport in 2018 with one main purpose: to digitise and host every cultural venue in the UK, so that the thousands of producers and suppliers, technicians, venue managers could all have easy access to accurate information about the venues they work in. My background is as a production manager, staging events ranging from festivals to commercial music, to National Opera Company, to National Opera scale work. And so that's provided me with some insight into the costs producers and venues face as they try to stage events. Stageport's main aim is to try and solve many of the communication problems that endure in the sector and provides solutions that companies can use to avoid wasting time and money. Our approach to this problem of providing better communication tools started in 2018, as I said. Really just a scan to plan service, but we were hosting point clouds online, and we were also hosting the models within those point clouds. And then moving on towards 2020, our approach has definitely evolved, and we started looking more at a technology more geared towards building information modelling. So fast forward from 2018 to 2020, and obviously the pandemic struck, and along with every other sector, you can imagine that the cultural sector has faced massive problems. The pandemic's created extraordinary barriers that will prevent audiences from visiting venues, as mentioned here by the cultural sector. So the research we've been doing into BIM technology was brought into sharp focus when the pandemic struck in 2020. And we successfully applied to Innovate UK for funding to look at how building information modelling could help in the recovery of venues and producers operating in the cultural sector. The project that was funded by Innovate UK was called Tramway Revisited. It involved 7 companies working with Tramway, a multi-arts venue in Glasgow. Tramway is a large multi-art space. It's a busy programme. It has a busy programme with 5 performance spaces. The main aim of Tramway Revisited was to improve the sustainability of existing venues, make compliance and risk assessment easier for producers, and then to explore the opportunities in production design and digital experience design using the BIM models that we're aiming to create and host. The process to digitise Tramway involved some drone surveys, 700 LiDAR scans, and we exported the scans to the CAD team in November 2020. And the guys done an amazing job creating a level 500 BIM model, including the site, architecture, MEP, structural and furniture detail. So it's a fantastic resource. And once we had the resource on the table, we then, had the problem of, how do we share this fantastic asset with non-BIM professionals around the table, as well as others that were more informed about, how we can use the data that sits behind this model. So we exported the model to 3D Repo in February to enable easier collaboration between the project team and with Tramway's own staff team. The benefits of using Repo are found, again, we're very new to BIM technology ourselves, but we've found that using Repo has got a number of really easy benefits. One is the easy navigation tools within the environment, the ability to raise issues in the model. The guys are busy planning cultural restart events, so there's installations and shows going into the venue in the next few months. So we're able to raise issues in there linked to the work that's been done on site. We're also able to access structural detail and really leverage the BIM data within the model, and this makes for better communication and better planning all round. What's been really fantastic has been the opportunity to use Safety Base to provide us with sort of contextual risk assessment. And we've got a couple of experienced health and safety professionals on the team, and they've been really impressed by this application in particular. And then presenter mode. We're really just getting started with presenter mode, but you can see in the snaps below. This is myself talking to the operations team at Tramway. None of these guys are fluent in 3D technology or BIM. But within an hour or so, we were able to, pass control of the model around and, get to work with planning the restart of events in the space. One of the things we've managed to achieve through this collaboration has been to enable Tramway to develop their COVID strategy, which is vital in the first phase of the project. The recovery of the recovery from the impact of the pandemic on venues like Tramway. So being able to collaborate and come up with this 2-metre strategy that allows them to go back to operation is a fantastic outcome. And just to put that into context, this is even just this morning. We've still got uncertainty in the sector around how we recover from the impact of the pandemic. So digitising the venue, having the venue up in Repo has really helped us to get to grips with the problems there, and we're looking forward to continue to use the technology in the months ahead.
All right. Thanks, Stephen.
No problem.
Thanks for sharing that. Bogdan, you're up next. If you'd like to share your screen and unmute yourself.
Yes, excellent. Thank you very much. That was actually a really good presentation. So it would probably make my bit a lot easier to understand as well. Let me share my screen now. Okay, can you see that now?
Yep, that's perfect.
Okay, awesome. Let's go. Thanks everyone for tuning in. It's really good to see so many of you turn out. I suspect everyone's having similar issues, right? We're all working remotely, and that's one of the hot topics. So what I'll do here today, I won't do any sales pitches. Instead, I'll do an idea pitch, something that we came across with our customers and something that many of our customers actually are capitalizing on and making their remote working even more efficient than they ever did in the past. So without further ado, we're gonna look into what the remote working is. So what is remote working, right? Remote working is something that we're actually quite familiar with and used to, despite of the current situation we find ourselves in, right? It's us communicating with others, wherever they may be, some different companies and entities. But right now, due to the current circumstances, we find ourselves needing to communicate with more project stakeholders, with individuals that you would usually communicate with, on a day-to-day basis when you are all in the same meeting room or sitting in the same office. So you're all familiar with these design coordination meetings, right? We would all get together in the same meeting room. One of us would probably drive the BIM model that we all spend time developing. And then those decision makers would just sit there and watch that single individual do the model navigation for them, review the clashes and things like that. I've done a number of those in the past myself, and I've always questioned, would those individuals ever go out and open that BIM model themselves and send me the new revision without the clashes? Because I was always getting tired of, identifying things, showing it to them, people nod their heads, but then they never go back to resolve it because they feel a bit too scared about opening those BIM models in the first place. So what do we do now? Things have changed, right? We still host the same meetings, but we do it remotely. So instead, we actually tune in using whatever you want it to be, MS Teams, Zoom, or Google Hangouts, whatever application you use, it's right there and it's easy to make use of it. But the problem is we solve the problem of right here and right now, and we're still resorting to our old school ways of communicating and presenting the design coordination. So instead of being in the same room and one person does the navigation and we all look at that big screen, we still do the same thing. We just minimize to smaller icons and that one person is navigating the model, we're all looking at it, and then we never realize what that BIM model is and how it's even put together. So to me, it looks familiar. To me, it looks exactly like this, but we just do it on screen instead of face to face. But what we're witnessing right now is an opportunity to actually capitalize on something new that's actually forming together in this digital world. So for instance, right now, what many of us may not have understood initially is the fact that, okay, we've solved the problem for right here, right now. We have these video calls and things like that. But what they never understood, and many of us are starting to understand now, is that we put a lot of those professionals that never used to interact with BIM models at the driver's seat. With applications like 3D Repo, each one of them can open the web browser, log in, and open that BIM model like the BIM professional always did for them. So the real question is, fantastic. So it would be silly for us to, let's say, put everybody at the driver's seat and then make them learn how to drive by watching video tutorials. It's silly. Let them do it slowly, 10, 20 miles an hour, change gear, they get accustomed to it, and then they pass the test, right? So you think about it, okay, well, if that's the case, right, it's easier said than done probably. How does the scalability of it works, right? How do you make sure that, okay, if you take it from, a single meeting room to, let's say, 15 people tuning in and each one of them opening a web browser to look at the BIM model, how do you make sure that the model and information that is being exchanged is, in a circle, right? So everybody getting the same information, no one gets left out. But most importantly, how do you make sure that everybody's looking at the model that you want them to look at, right? Because it's so easy to get lost in the environment when you're not familiar with it. But the most important thing, we're leaving communication right in the heart of it, right? We want to make sure that it's not a burden, it's actually a new tool that can help you communicate better. Just like all these video conferencing tools we are using to facilitate those meetings where 6 or 7 of us would be together. So how do you make it work, right? If we look at the technological side of things, presenter mode is something that actually spun out as an idea. And we did the Innovate UK funded project for it, and we had a lot of beta testers and a lot of customers are starting to adopt it. But the main issue that we found is the fact that, okay, when you go remote, that means you're going to be running a video, running audio. So there will be a lot of payload on your network. You'll be downloading a lot of things. Your internet might be under a bit of strain. And you may notice in here, this is an example federation, MEP and structural model. And you'll see there are loads of streams, there's loads of data exchange. And you always question yourself, well, isn't it going to add a degree of complexity and maybe heavy loads on your internet bandwidth? Well, let's not deep dive into this idea without looking under the bonnet of it. Let's look at the numbers, right? So you'll notice, for instance, the model we looked at earlier is one of the federations from our clients at Woodworth Project, Canary Wharf Group. The model we looked at just then was 115 megabytes, right? So one of the issues we resolved is actually the ability to cache your model data locally. So for instance, you'll notice that time to load model without caching is set at 3 minutes, right? Once you enable caching, it only takes you 13 seconds to download that data. So if you're going to be looking at the same model, why do you have to constantly download it every time? So that's tick box number 1, right? We reduce that need and dependency on the internet by you being able to store data locally. But what's really beneficial is the ability to, like I said, put everybody in the driver's seat, right? So you are no longer sat there watching a video like many of you are doing right now and looking at what I'm presenting to you. You're able to interact with it yourself. And if we look at the graph in here, we'll notice that, when we do sound and screen sharing through, let's say, MS Teams, our actual network load is all over the place, right? We suddenly find ourselves in situations where you always ask, do you hear me? The picture is too pixelated. You can't actually see what's happening. But when you just resort to, let's say, a sound call, and then instead of watching somebody navigating model for you, but being driven within the application itself, it actually reduces your payload across the internet bandwidth. So you'll notice that, wow, excellent. So the issue that we're resolving in here is that we're actually encouraging those individuals to work with those 3D BIM model environment. But most importantly, what we realize is that we are no longer having the same issues of, the internet dropping out or you not being able to see the picture. So it all sounds great. You might want to see it. I'll show you how it works exactly. So right here, for instance, let's say I have a design coordination meeting. So you'll notice there are 2 screens side by side. But this could also be me talking to my colleague who might be sat in Edinburgh or somewhere else, right? So when we dial in, we start our communication channel. And the good thing is, since you are in this environment, for my colleague who doesn't know how to do, this whole BIM stuff and everybody talks about it, and because, software deployment is a problem, is an issue, there are steep learning curves, I'm going to facilitate that for him. I'm going to make it a lot easier, right? I'm going to go in and then create my design coordination meeting. Let's say today is 29/04/2021. In fact, I'm going to, start my presenter mode session, and I'm just going to copy that code and drop it into description. And the good thing is, since we're working in an environment that is not screen sharing, the good thing is everything is then intact and audited. Right, so this is going to be an in-progress issue, and this is going to be my design coordination. So for instance, okay, let's jump into the presenter mode itself, right? So we're together in the same meeting, we're trying to figure things out, we're trying to understand stuff. So whilst it's easier for me to navigate the model and things, for others it may not be the case, right? So when I initiate my actual presenter mode, I start my session, I can copy my code, I can share the URL link if I want to, but the other individual can just quite easily copy the code in there and then join the session. What happens next is that whilst I'm working remotely, I may be communicating with somebody elsewhere. So for instance, let's say I might go and say, actually, do you want to go and have a look at an issue with me, right? There is an issue that I want addressed. So it's this electrical cable and door, right? So when we go there, it's no longer just me showing a screen and then the other person is looking at it and then thinking, okay, what is it? It's me navigating the model for them also. So as I fly around the model, as I'm showing things, they'll be getting exactly the same picture. So for instance, I might point out, okay, well, this is the actual door that I'm talking about. When you click on it, the object selection will come through to the other individual as well. And if you point out an issue with this and say, hey, look, there's a cable clashing or there's something else happening, what's really nice is that you can actually add a level of information exchange that often goes unnoticed. And what I'm saying is that whilst I'm in this environment, I might go and say, okay, hold on. I just have a question. If he's saying that there's an issue with this cable, why is it coming from that, right? I can always leave the meeting, and whilst I'm in the environment, I'm no longer looking at screen share, right? What I'm able to do next is I'm able to navigate out and then look around the model and maybe even notice another thing and might say, oh, actually, I noticed that there is some sort of ductwork that is set right in front of this door. I think there might be another issue that we want to resolve as well. So the good thing is, you know, when we go back into our issues environment, there's a full audit trail for everything. I might go back in here and also point to something else. And then I might go and say, you know, this is my comment. My comment might not be related to that, but because I'm looking at the BIM model, not your screen share, I might go and say, actually, have a look in here. This looks rather odd. To me, it looks like there's some sort of MEP equipment in front of the door as well. So we might move the cable, but maybe we need to move the door as well because there's a bigger issue here. What's in here, right? So this is the comment that I add, and that comment is instantly coming back to me, right, on the other side of the world. So once I've identified something, I might have added extra value to my design coordination. I then go on and say, okay, let's jump back into the environment. Let's go back to the meeting so that we can crack on so I don't lose track of the agenda. The person that's leading the meeting might go and say, oh, actually, you are right. There is an interesting comment here, and I want to share that with everyone else. So because everybody else is following me, I can click on that comment and then go and have a look at what that individual is actually trying to articulate there. So as it goes on, as you all start communicating, you realize that it's no longer you throwing you know, suggestions across the room table, and then when you leave the meeting, you suddenly start scratching your head thinking, what is it that we wanted to do? You can always come back to it whenever you want to. And those individuals that are working simultaneously with you, they can also at the same time, at any moment in time, you know, step away, identify something else, might add some other comment or something else as well, but you might say, okay, he's pointing to something else also. Let's quickly go and have a look at that. And that's the real value in this. It's, once again, the ability to, at its easiest concept, to drive that BIM adoption with the rest of the project team by not doing the work for them, but by doing the work with them and making the actual workflows rather simple and straightforward. They're all live. They're not too dissimilar to you exchanging information on the likes of WhatsApp or Facebook, right? So there are no steep learning curves, and everything is in the web browser, which we're all used to. I'll probably conclude it here because I've probably used too much internet now, downloading and showing things in here. And I'll pass it over to the next presentation. Thank you very much, everyone.
Bogdan, thank you. So Matthew, it is genuinely over to you this time.
Thank you very much. Thanks for that, Bogdan. Sort of proving the case for, what is it they say, never work with animals and children and never demo live tech. I think, yeah, but very amicably done, sir. And yeah, thank you for the introduction, and thank you to everybody on the call for your time. So I'm Matt Gough. I'm the Innovation Director for a company called Mace. Hopefully you'll have heard of us. We are an international construction and consultancy company with a clear purpose in life to redefine the boundaries of ambition for our industry. And to do so, we seek to differentiate in three core areas: net zero carbon and how we can help accelerate the built environment's response to the climate emergency, construction to production, so changing the business model in which we all operate, And all of that will be enabled by a transformation around how we manage digital and data within both our business and the industry at large. And I'll start here really. Across the globe, our people are adopting a different mindset to develop, adopt and deploy technology across all parts of the project lifecycle. So I've been at Mace for 10 years. I've witnessed rapid change around our adoption of technology, and that change just continues to accelerate. And globally, we're becoming more efficient and more productive every day through the application of that technology, whether it's flying drones, whether it's application of augmented reality, virtual reality, 360 cameras, sensors, automation. We're designing, estimating, delivering in digital, and we're delivering better outcomes for our clients as a result. And what that results in is a huge amount more data. And what we're really trying to get a grip on as a business is how we can use that data in a meaningful way so that we can have the right information at the right times in order to make the right decisions more consistently. And what you can see here is our kind of current, or it was 2 years ago, best practice example of what we call a production control room. So this is on a hyperscale data center over in Ireland, where we digitized, connected and integrated the entire construction workflow from design right through to handover and operation of the building. We made people's work easier and efficient by democratizing data and integrating all of the on-site processes using a digital platform. And that allowed people to work faster and it allowed people to access the right information at the right time. And what our intention is as a business is, can we create a standard repeatable way of rolling that out on any construction projects, be that ones that we are responsible for the delivery of, or be it ones that we are responsible in part for the management of through our consultancy business. And in order to do that, we are currently working on one of the Innovate UK demonstrator projects under the Transforming Construction sector deal called the AEC Production Control Room. And our intention here is to build exactly that repeatable, scalable, plug and play management reporting system that is automating the reporting cycle. So we're enabling high frequency, fact-based project management and control at all levels. We're going to be getting data from any systems, whether it's our sort of clients and professional teams' proprietary systems or our suppliers' own sort of tools and softwares, and automatically collating it into a single reporting focal point for the project. So the aim is establishing one source of the truth for all and making data accessible anytime via any browser, and a physical control room location, probably within some form of site office. So our team, in order to pull this together, I should give a shout out at this point in time. So this is Mace working with 3D Repo, EviFile and Mission Room as our UK startup SMEs, and UCL and Imperial College as our research and academic partners. And the problem that we're really trying to tackle is something like this. So what you can see here on the screen, I won't go into it in intricate detail, but 3 different examples of what we might call information management on a project. And for those of you involved in project delivery, I'm sure you will recognize some of the challenges around getting even monthly reports to be consistent and to collate all of the data required in order to provide meaningful management information. And the reason behind that is generally the interconnectedness of systems and the opaqueness that is kind of generated through the contract models and the commercial incentives that we have on sites. So our aim is twofold, really. Can we unlock the business model and the transformation required in order to get data in real time and to break that kind of cultural behavioral barrier around sharing? And can we create a system in order to be able to take care of the technology part? And we recognize that technology is only part of the solution here. You know, it's the behavioral and the cultural part that's probably going to make this one win or lose. But in essence, what we're trying to illustrate here is the fact that through smart API management, decent approach to clouds, and probably some ways and means of smart machine learning, AI over the top in terms of analytics, we should be able to unlock all tiers of the supply chain through project delivery to create a real-time management dashboard information to allow us to achieve better outcomes for our clients. Within our Innovate UK project, we have some deliverables, and the intention is that we share these widely with industry. So the three main things that I would say we're sort of shooting for here. Firstly, as an industry, we've got pretty good at managing design information, you know, the advent of Uniclass, etc. The continuing onslaught of Autodesk and the BIM platforms and products means that, as you know, the front end of projects, we tend to be much better now at managing information, as probably demonstrated just then by our friends at Repo. As soon as we get into delivery, all bets tend to be off. So we're talking about extending the ISO employees information requirements concept out into project control projects. So how do we actually manage the site in a consistent way? And can we create some standardization around that? We're obviously not building new systems. We're planning on APIing and working with existing systems. And as we build those APIs, we intend to open source and provide those on GitHub so that the whole of the industry can benefit from them. And then lastly, if we can unlock project information at this scale, we're working with particularly government clients around how do we start to create the pool or database, let's say, of industry-wide benchmark data to allow the whole industry to get better. And the real pain point or opportunity as we see it is about digitizing collaboration. So those of you familiar with the concept of lean, you know, there is we all love a post-it note and an ability to plan activities by scheduling things out. And what you've got there is a picture of a wonderful collaborative planning workshop with a number of trades all working out who's going to do what at what time and how we can work effectively together. We've already made some strides as an industry in terms of how we digitize that. But what we really start to lose when we move from that physical to the digital is perhaps the immersive element of activity. So what we're really aiming at is creating an immersive environment in which all operatives and supply chain partners, etc., can partake. So here's the first iteration of one of our production control rooms. This is on a project that Mace is currently running down in Paddington. And we're tapping into a few additional things here that we wouldn't have been doing in the past or able to do before this project. So firstly, you know, the advent of 4D collaboration. So the production control room is tapping into our 4D sequencing. So we're able to use the BIM model more effectively in short-term planning sessions. There's a huge amount of effort going into enriching data. So the 3D models that we get, and also a lot of the data that the sites generate, is not always at the quality we need at source. So the production control room is really allowing us to perhaps take a bit more control and add context to that data without having to go back to the authoring tools. And then, you know, the main bit, as I just said, collaboration and dissemination. So creating an environment such as this where you're able to get people comfortable with what is being proposed on the project, what's happening in terms of sequencing, what key activities, etc., are coming next, and getting comfortable around the plan is proving to be really effective in terms of driving productivity. It's not easy. I mean, we all work in the industry and we all recognize that our digital transformation and adoption is still, in some respects, in its infancy, but it's getting faster. And some of the things, the real tricky problems that we're trying to tackle here, it's a good reason for actually using the word elephant, a lot around the quality of the data, and the disconnectedness of the data. And there's a huge amount of training and upskilling required for us as an industry as a whole in order to create this kind of consistency that we probably need if we're going to unlock the productivity improvements that are on the table. But we would like to say that where we're doing it, the productivity improvements are possible. So here's some statistics from a project that Mace is working on where we have managed to integrate our data, and we've done our part in order to address this. And as you can see there, there's significant ROI in terms of improving productivity as a result of a more connected, holistic view of digital platforms and systems on projects. So that's the dream. We're making good headway. There's always more to be done, but we're very much looking forward to having a successful year and working with 3D Repo and the team in order to deliver some real meaningful change.
Matt, thanks very much, and thanks very much for the immersive elephant, which we'll all look out for in future.
Even you couldn't say it, see?
So, Lawrence, it's over to you to share your screen.
Thank you very much. I'm just going to share the screen right now. So, thank you and welcome to the Luminova presentation of Hyperview. I'm Lawrence Matthews, the Managing Director of Luminova. And just a little bit of background about us. At Heathrow, we have been worked up there for a long time, and we're known for visualizing to communicate the design intent to stakeholder groups. And we began that with Terminal 5 back in 2005. And that followed with Terminal 2, which we started on that project when the old Terminal 2 was being demolished, and worked right through the construction program with that. And we also then moved on to the third runway expansion project, and basically we worked on runways, roads and buildings, and all with the purpose in mind to communicate to stakeholder groups. Fast forward to 2021, Luminova has developed the new Hyperview digital twin platform, which is built for visualizing large-scale projects, enabling immersive reviews and offering a deeper stakeholder engagement. The key points I'm going to run over today are these: that one of the main parts of this that makes it work is the BIM Live Link integration that we have with 3D Repo, which helps us handle large schemes. I'm going to show you some high fidelity visuals in a gaming environment in real time, and also some immersive examples, and touch on the distributable package element of this application. So here's how it works, and for our purposes, it begins with models, and these models are either created for or by the client. And for us, for the Hyperview, those models get pushed into 3D Repo, and then they are federated. And between then and actually creating a desktop application, we need to configure. So we create a BIM Live link, which is the integration we have to 3D Repo. We then address the material library, and we allocate materials to the geometrical objects that come in. We deal with our object library, which basically fills the gaps. In other words, if items aren't available in the original model, we use our own object library to fill those gaps. And then you have the Hyperview story. And what that's really about, it's about configuring the story that we're telling, which involves navigation, which is the main thing. Once we then create the desktop application, we've got a few choices in terms of how to deploy that. One being to large format meeting room screens, desktop PC, or indeed we have an integration with Mission Room, which I'll show you at the latter part of the presentation. So back to the models. So we've got models which we pushed into 3D Repo as stage 1, and I'm just going to show you an example of that. So here we have a part of Heathrow Terminal 2, in fact, which is being pushed into 3D Repo. We've set up 4 simple views. You can see quite a lot of gaps here, which we would fill in the hyperview if that information isn't available. So we're now just moving between these four views or scenes. We're at the fast bag drop at the moment, and we'll end up back at the premium check-in. You'll see a deployed hyperview version of this in a moment. So here we are at the 3D Repo stage 1. Stage 2 is where I'll just put some stripes here showing you the different elements of the process. The first thing we do is we set up the BIM live link, and then that data from 3D Repo is downloaded into the hyperview as an instance or a session, and that's what you get first. And what we then do is we allocate materials to the geometrical objects that are downloaded, and then we move on to the hyperview object library and we fill the gaps. And what we're really doing there is we're adding things like media, wayfinding, trolleys, things that you're not going to find in the BIM model, or you may, or there might be parts that aren't actually loaded as yet. And then the final part is telling the story. So what we do here is we create an appropriate user interface which guides the user through the story. We add people with motion capture behavior for realism, and of course lighting. And so to show you an example of a deployed version of this, of the 4 views that we saw just a bit earlier, here we are now in the model with all the materials deployed, lighting, etc. And we have 4 fixed views. So it's quite a simple UI, but nevertheless, here's the model in its current format. So as you can see, we've got some slight motion capture behavior over there with these people moving across to the fast bag drop, and we'll end with this particular simple deployment at the premium check-in. So a more elaborate version, same model, but simply a different deployment telling a more complicated story. Here we've got a number of fixed views, but we can depart from these. We're just using the right-hand cursor to move along this walkway. But now we'll go back to the fixed views to tell a story. And this one's about optioneering. So here you can see we're swapping out materials on these kiosks. We're going to now move forward and test wayfinding. Moving right along, we're going to test advertising and media content across the site wide. Test sight lines with just a simple version of it here where we're just removing trolleys and replacing them, but we could be removing and replacing any object. Testing people in the environment, only 3, but there could be many. And this is a special feature that we created, which is to do with a color blindness simulator. So we're testing 2 different types of color blindness of the 4 possible available in that menu, and then back to normal. And now we'll break away from the fixed views and we'll simply explore the site with a free camera. We could go straight through to security check here, but we'll draw the line at E-gates and we'll select to go back to the start. And the final deployment that I wanted to show was the fully immersive mission room example. So here we have the same model, and we're using a further integration, in this case where the Hyperview is integrated with mission room. So any of the applications that we build could be shown in this way as well, to give you a fully immersive view of your environment. Using an Xbox controller here to move around freely. So just as a recap, what we've looked at is the BIM live link, which is key to the link with 3D Repo's models and bringing those large models, those large schemes down into a gaming environment where you have high fidelity visuals running in real time, and the possibility of an immersive view of it too, using mission room, and the fact that it's a distributable package in that it's an executable program, so it can be shared. And we think that the key project benefits of this is you'll get a deeper stakeholder engagement, which will allow for faster decision cycles and immediate updating. And what I mean by that is that the models that go up into 3D Repo with the live link are pulled down every time the application starts, down to the Hyperview. And when these models are reviewed or updated, that review will come down as well. So each time you start the application, you'll get basically the most recent version. So that's a quick look at the Hyperview Online from me, and feel free to reach out if you've got any questions, and feel free to contact us at hyperview@luminova.com. Thank you for that.
Lawrence, thank you very much. I'll let you share your screen, and I shall reshare mine. Give me a second. So let's just move on to the next slide. So we're into the Q&A. So thanks very much to all of you so far for those presentations. So let's crack on with as many questions as we can get through. I know some of them have been answered, but let's make sure everyone gets to hear those answers. So perhaps I'll run through them in order in which they arrived. So Stephen, there was a question about are there any good examples of de-risking work via Safety Base? So do you want to tell us about that?
Yes, no problem. The primary reason for using Safety Base at the moment is to enable the COVID strategy to develop. So that there are producers who want to come back to tramway, and they've got plans that we need to embed into the model, and then we look at occupancy and flow and audience traffic around installations or performances. So that's what we're using it for just now, but there's massive potential to use it to assess risk for other work that has to happen, within a production environment, such as working at height, rigging, electrical safety. I mean, ultimately, it's for me, it looks like it could be used as a kind of live CDM, and that risks can be identified. They can be assessed, and we can use Repo as a sort of live database for what we're planning to do on a kind of production by production basis. So yeah, there's huge potential there for the tool to be used in other ways.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, all right. A question for Bogdan: is there any limit to the number of people in a virtual design coordination meeting, and is the system agnostic of PC, Mac, desktop, mobile, etc.?
Yeah, good question. The system is designed to facilitate the ease of use across the internet. So you can get as many people as you like. Since you're not sharing cameras and things like that, you're only just sending updates to, let's say, object selections, camera positions, any color overrides, or any comments that you add. Having said that, in terms of agnostic, whether it's capable of running on other applications or operating systems, Windows, Mac, it's not a problem, through the browser, so you don't need to download and install anything. If you want to run it on, let's say, things like iPhone or Android phone, your phone might not be powerful enough to open up heavy BIM models. That might be the only issue. But from working from home on a laptop or a PC, it's no problem. Get as many people involved. That's the whole idea.
Yeah, excellent. Okay, all right. There's a couple for Matt. So I think this is in reference to the mission control room. Could you use this on the HS2 rail project?
We're open to any project opportunities, of course. So, my email is available in the chat.
But as you say, it's applicable to both buildings and infrastructure.
Sorry, yes, being more constructive about it. Yes, Justin. I mean, essentially, we're trying to provide a management reporting layer that sits across a live construction project. So that could be any type of building or infrastructure.
Yeah.
To be honest, the level of information complexity, etc., tends to be a bit higher in infrastructure, but equally, there's a lot more repeatable items. So we've demonstrated already that we can provide good insight and deliver meaningful impact. So yes.
Excellent. Okay, and then so another one for you. How much buy-in from the supply chain do you need to get the real-time management dashboard to work as it should? How willing are they to engage with the concept?
So I guess broadly across all of our construction projects, you can't do this without your supply chain. And from a digital perspective, and when it works well, it's when our supply chain are really engaged in the project and the solution. We've got a tendency as an industry to push loads of requirements down, like the sort of supply chain, whether that's a client to a contractor or a contractor to the supply chain. So we set really heavy expectations, and then we don't really provide a lot of value back. So what we're starting to unlock here on our production control room projects, etc., is actually you massively increase engagement if you can give people meaningful insights and information back. So it's the spirit of reciprocity, as we refer to it. And if you can unlock that, then everybody tends to enjoy working in better, smarter ways. Yep,
excellent. That's great. And noting that it's an R&D project, but how long did it take to decide what data you wanted presented in the mission control room, and how do you ensure that there isn't any information overload?
Yeah, I mean, that's one of the things that our research partners are helping us with from UCL, and we're constantly iterating it, to be honest. We do produce a huge amount of information on construction projects. Some might say not quite enough. We still haven't really unlocked the real-time kind of sensor information, etc. And actually, some of the information that we get is still a little bit too out of date. But we are really working hard on how to, what information is important to make good decisions with, and we can push that down or sort of back into the projects. And then perhaps looking at the breadth of data, that's where it starts to get interesting around sort of prediction and machine learning, etc. So we're really trying to explore how do we take a lot of the heavy data away from the site almost and just provide back some kind of simple insights and recommendations.
Yeah, okay. And the two questions again for you around the benefits. Was this a 35% more productive project while also dealing with COVID restrictions? And was that compared to pre-COVID? And is the productivity improvement because of time saving or more about the additional benefits of integrating digital platforms?
So the slide put up during today's presentation is a time saving one. It's the reality that if we can apply technology, we can improve people's working week by automating things for them, in essence. So on the example we shared, we reckon we gave site managers back circa 8.5 hours a week just by providing information to them without them having to go and do the heavy lifting and the hard work. But the overall objective around productivity, and this is a challenge for us all, we do have a productivity problem to address. If we do address it, I think the McKinsey stat is there's something like 1.6 trillion of unlocked value on the table due to construction's productivity challenge. So the real ambition is if we can get all of our data digital platforms working effectively, it should lead us to be able to build better, faster, cheaper, greener buildings and make those productivity improvements that are all important.
Excellent. Okay, thank you for that. Couple for Lawrence. What advantage does using 3D Repo offer over just importing the models direct into Unity or Unreal for Hyperview? And also, what benefits have clients derived from Hyperview? Do you have any examples?
So I think that the one big advantage, or couple of big advantages of using the system via 3D Repo rather than just directly into Unity or Unreal, is that you can benefit from using very large model sets. If you tried to, we have a demonstration of Stratford, for example. There are, I think, 18 BIM models, and there's a very complex terrain. If you tried bringing that into Unity or Unreal, you would struggle because you'd have to heavily optimize the model, whereas 3D Repo does that heavy lifting for you, and that is a huge benefit in terms of cost saving. And the other thing associated with that too is that if any of those BIM models were to change after you do the initial setup, those geometrical and within reason material changes would be enjoyed automatically. Every time you start the application, you're pulling the models down as an instance into the Hyperview from 3D Repo. So you don't have to re-optimize everything. So I'd say that's certainly a benefit to the client in terms of cost, but a huge time saver overall.
Excellent. Okay. And a couple of two more questions for Bogdan. Does the system accept Revit files directly, and does 3D Repo have an API?
We can handle Revit files on 3drepo.io, or you can also publish them using the plugins for Revit. Alternatively, for APIs, we have quite an extensive list of APIs that allow you to do just about anything without even opening 3D Repo, whether it's issues, model data, or anything else. So if you head over to 3drepo.com/API, you'll find more information about it.
Excellent. All righty. I think that's the key questions. Thank you very much to all the panelists this afternoon, Stephen, to Bogdan, Matthew, and Lawrence. This webinar will be available on demand. News about our other forthcoming digital events can be found at digitalconstructionevents.com. Thank you again to all of our panelists and to 3D Repo for making this webinar happen. Thank you, audience, for tuning in. Good afternoon.